this. This is a mystery. This is a mystery. This is if I have any criticism about listening to, or I shouldn't say listening, like with art nowadays, it's kind of you know what you're gonna get. I feel like if you, and I like not knowing. I miss that. Like when I would get that first albums in the '90s, I grew up in an era.
Oh, I see what you're saying there. It's
where,
a lot of diversity.
Oh, it was crazy. You didn't know where it was a ride.
Yeah.
And you were gonna go to a place. It wasn't the same song. Like there was violence, right? But like Doggy Style. When I heard Doggy Style, which I was not supposed to be listening to Doggy Style.
Right.
When I heard Doggy Style, I was in my bed with the headphones on, and that thing took me into a world, man.
Yeah. Similar with like, America's Most Wanted or something, you know what I mean? Like I was like, or just
once you get in, you're in.
Yeah. We can talk, one of my first, experiences was like hearing like KRS-One, you know what I mean? Like BDP, era. And what am I doing listening? Like Poor Righteous Teachers, you know what I mean? Like what white kid from New Hampshire, you know what I mean? Like some part of me was like really intrigued, you know what I mean? The other part of me was like, what is this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think
how did it get to, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's you're sort of jumping the lead here, but
yeah.
Hey everyone, it's Mike. I'm here with Dennis.
Sorry.
And today's guest is Kane Major, a friend of mine who I've met. I've had the pleasure of meeting through community activism.
Yeah,
essentially.
Absolutely.
And
Nice to meet you, Kane. We've already been talking.
Yep.
I'm a fan.
Yeah,
it's good energy here. You know what I'm saying?
It's. So I think there's a little bit of a butterfly effect here, right? So like I met you initially because of music.
Right.
I met you through community activism.
Right.
Wow.
But I found out that you're into music. You started getting into community activism.
I did.
But the three of us, like we met all in different ways. Like
yeah.
You two literally just met, but you guys already have a connection.
Yeah, I mean it's
fun.
When I looked at your stuff, I was kind of like, I wonder how much, if he knows who Leeds is, and you know what I mean. I thought about the bridge, you know what I mean, obviously, but it's wild. In Boston, it's not a huge scene anyway, so it's obviously gonna have some commonalities there.
Yeah,
I know everybody. This is the thing. You go around looking at prices, right? At least for me. I'm from out here. I'm like you. I'm from Havel, right? But I have a unique background because I was incarcerated.
Okay.
So I know the street culture of all of the places rappers come from.
Yep.
But that creates another layer that's weird for me to navigate as an artist. Because you get what I'm saying now, it's like if you meet an artist and whoever the influencer of that community is comes up and like, hey, here's my rapper friend from prison.
Right.
Like that's not really a great introduction.
Right. It's kind of there's a stigma or a certain kind of an expectation maybe.
So I met everyone kind of in these contexts, but like the thing is I could only I'm a fan of hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew them from 88.9. So 88.9 was the internet. That was Facebook, right? Like you got to know artists if you stayed attention.
Is that like a social media platform?
That's Emerson College.
It was everything. That was like our source.
That was from 96, 97, my basement, or 95, 96, that was my era. Like right there was like when I was like heavily just come home, try to do some homework, throw on the thing and just be listening to the radio all night. Yeah. And then they would have the reggae afterwards, right? It's like the 4,000 watts of reggae power.
Boom.
And that would come on afterwards, and I would love that shit.
We had a strong radio for a little bit, and then I don't know what happened, but there was when it was going in the right direction. Like the Jammin' 94.5, you had 88.9 at night. The Hot 97 thing started happening, and then something happened.
Well, the internet happened. But I think it's important that we provide context. Because here we were talking about all this music, right? And we were saying we're all coming from different places. We really didn't. Obviously, the audience knows who we're about, but we don't know who Kane Major is about.
Right. Yes.
So I think for me, I'm going to give you the perspective of how we met.
Sure.
So, like I said, we met through community activism. We were involved in local politics, and I think actually it was through the PTA of all things.
That's it.
The Parent Teachers Association, like you would have at every school. We were there at the PTA, at the PTA meeting. He was like one of the only other guys there. I was just like, oh, hey, what's going on, man, And then we kind of bonded that way. And then there's a bunch of craziness going on in our town. We live in the same town.
Yeah,
and, I didn't know, there was other people passionate. Kane had a lot of passion about it. He was just like, this is crazy, this is extreme, we can't deal with all this extreme nonsense. So we linked up a few times for doing things like sign holding and stuff like that. And one of those times we were sign holding, just kind of chit-chatting, and then he randomly drops that he's a hip-hop producer, and I'm like, what? of all the things that you could be in small town New Hampshire, hip-hop producer. So that's
a thing, though.
Yeah,
I feel like that's a thing.
Yeah. Well, but what I was going to say was, and this is part of the reason why I want to have you on the show, is that I want you to kind of explain how does someone from, if I remember correctly, you were in southern New Hampshire for basically most of your life.
Yes.
How do you get involved in hip hop? Because it's not a thing that you would be accustomed to in that area. You know what I mean?
Well, so, like I said, at first, I think when we started, I was talking about BDP and porridge and seasons. I have a brother. We grew up together in the same house, but early on, he has a different father, but I consider him, my brother. His father used to live in Lawrence, and his father had a son, and so he has another brother, and he would spend weekends and stuff like that. His father was kind of a dirtball, but the brother was involved in some gangs in Lawrence, and although my brother never really got into too much trouble with that stuff, he would just bring home tapes and stuff. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And so that's how I would be stealing his tapes of or it's just teachers, like I said, BDP, 3 Times Dope later on, in the 89, 90 era. A lot of stuff. Like I said, Public Enemy, you know what I mean?
How long would you listen?
Oh, it was wouldn't leave the cassette, you know what I mean? It just wouldn't leave my walk, you know what I mean? It was just that era. And I'd be just riding my bike or having to, walk to school or something, you know what I mean? I just would not leave home without a cassette at that age. Never, ever. And then batteries, you know what I mean? You gotta worry about batteries. But yeah, it's I wonder, I wish, you just wish you could observe what I thought of things, you know what I mean? Because it's very pro-black stuff, you know what I mean? And my parents had no idea about, any of these 5% stuff, you know what I mean? Nation, you know what I mean? Nation of Gods and the Earths and, stuff like that. And, it's wild to me that I was introduced to that at such a young age, you know what I mean? And ultimately, I think it's a positive thing because, it gives me a better perspective on, the way things are, you know what I mean?
Hmm. So, I'm only going to say this from this perspective of some of the stuff we used to see in the news around that time, right? So we would have typically older white guy politicians who are basically hip hop is creating all the violence because it's influencing the teens and it's causing the drug problems and all this other
Tipper Gore,
Yes. And you're listening to it and you're like, no, there's actually a lot of positive here. It gives me perspective.
Yeah.
It provides
it's the classic. Yeah, I'm sorry. No.
Well, I was just going to say, it gives you a window to a world that you may not have experience to. Which I'm now learning that you had some exposure by having a brother.
Well, no, but it's not like he was telling me all these gang stories, and it's they weren't it's not. I don't want to give that that kind of image. It's just I wouldn't know what he was up to, but I know that
there was stuff happening.
Yeah.
Well, and just for the sake of your own contents in the context for the audience, we actually had a couple guests on before who did talk about Lawrence.
Oh yeah, well,
so we do have a little perspective that during that time, technically,
what was going on?
We knew what was going on.
Yeah. Again, my brother wasn't involved in that stuff. He was just kind of in the same house as this kid, and they would listen to music stuff like that.
But I think I wanna put a pin in the fact of the power of hip hop to connect people cross culture.
Yeah,
because DJ Motion's from Chester and he lived in Lowell. But my point is
Chester, New Hampshire.
now, that's where he lives now.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
But my whole point is, right, but he was a DJ on Jammin', and he's one of the best technical DJs in the state.
Yeah.
But my whole point is hip hop, because like you're saying, you learned from 5%ers. If people even understand, like when you look at Wu-Tang and what he's talking about, that's a whole culture that doesn't get its just due in hip hop. Because, right, if you look at the 5%ers and how they've operated in hip hop culture, there's violence everywhere. There's been violence with them, but the violence with them has been different than any other group. I don't think they've ever actively went out. Do you get what I'm saying? And tried to create a culture.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely like an active kind of like a pro-black kind of like is how I understood it, a message, a way to put out a message of like, empowerment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I've never felt fear. Like I've never gone to one of their events and not felt welcomed. Or like, if you go to a gangster,
right, Zulu Nation type stuff, you know what I mean? Like, it is very, it's supposed to be inclusive, you know what I mean?
But it's also serious. Like I'm trying to point out that I appreciate the 5%ers because it has a lot of the things, like it's a lot of men. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's a lot of men that are working together, but usually when men work together, sometimes it gets too violent. It feels that way. Like it's real serious and all gangster. And I've always, the 5%ers are serious, but I think they're about community. Mm-hmm. There's that measure of activism, of like, we're doing this to help. It's not just about us making money.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So I got to appreciate them for that.
Okay. I guess to fast forward, right? So you've been listening to this music for a while, and then at some point you're like, I want to produce hip hop.
Yeah, I mean that was a long way away. But actually, I think I wrote my first rap song when I was in like third grade, and whatever. But
third grade, for context, like what
I was
year?
Must have been like 8. You know what I mean? Something like that.
80 something.
Oh, it was 80. Let's say like 87, maybe.
Wow.
80, 86, 87. But yeah, no, like so in high school. Group of friends, we all, listen to the same stuff. And just like right after we finished high school, it was like we were just putzing around and not doing much. We were all kind of in college, but here and there. But somebody had a karaoke machine, like we just started, writing some raps or whatever. And that's basically how it started. And then one of my best friend's brother somehow, I don't understand how he got the piece of, he got an Sonic EPS, which is like a workstation. It's like a keyboard workstation. Mm-hmm. Took those old school like discs, and he taught himself how to, he would like make beats. You know what I mean? And he was kind of like one of these dudes who like is just good at everything that he just touched. He was immediately good at it. Like whatever, you know what I mean? Whatever it is, sport or instruments or what have you. He picked up the drums in like 6 months. He was like the best drummer I've ever seen in my life. So like, he started making beats, and then he would make beats, and then we would kind of like start rapping on these things, and then it kind of evolved from there basically. Mm-hmm. I basically learned how to make beats from that dude, and I would sneak over like his house, like his parents' house at like 2 a.m, and like sneak in their basement and try to like use it while everybody was asleep, you know what I mean? It was like weird. Like I think of now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that was like right around 99, 98.
Okay.
I started doing that, and it's been.
And they've kept that ever since.
Yep, kept that ever since.
Even after marriage and having a child.
Yeah, well, it definitely like so. Around 2007, 2008 was where I kind of like took a step back, and was like more focused on my relationship, and then, I don't know how deep you want to get into it, but I wasn't actively doing music at that time, so it kind of took a back seat. And I was always kind of making beats here and there, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm making this and it's going to be put out, and it was for a reason. You know what I mean? It was just it turned into me just tinkering.
But the passion never went away. You're like, I'm going to keep up with it simply because I love doing it. Like,
yeah, it's like I don't know what else. You know what I mean? I can play video games, or I can do this. It feels more constructive to do this. You know what I mean? That's kind of where I was at.
That's cool.
So this is your last project?
Yeah, that came out in 2024. I think we dropped it in like November. So yeah, we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary. I think we dropped it in November. A lot of those songs are from 2024 and like the end of 23.
Okay.
Can you just play like a beat or something real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, before we play the beat, let's explain, because you made the beat, but you're working with a particular artist. You want to tell people?
Oh, of course. So I produce the beats. When I was when I was more active with music, I had a group of dudes that we worked with, and we had a group, like, whatever we called ourselves back then. But these two guys, my good friends now, Al J and Yusuf, we were all together back then, and we continue to do stuff, here and there. But they stayed together. About 4 or 5 years ago, me and Al J started doing stuff because Al J is a very prolific writer, and he just has to be always doing something, either recording or writing to like beats and stuff like that. So when him and Yusuf are not actively working on their projects, he like needed something. You know what I mean? I need something to occupy me. And so Leeds was like, "Oh, you should start just Kane, you should start giving him beats." And I started doing that, and then it turned into a project, and we released our first album together like 4 years ago. And then I'm doing project work here and there. I do stuff for Black Medine, and we dropped that in November. And we have a good working relationship. And again, we're both born in October. We both again grew up. We both are big fans of like 80s music. Me and LJ, and so we kind of vibe together. He sends me a lot of samples, a lot of ideas. So like, oh, you should do something with this. You should do something with this, and I'll dig my own samples. But a lot of times, stuff he sends me, it ends up being like
Gold.
It ends up being gold because it's like I know what he wants out of it, and I'm like, oh, I kind of add my thing to it, and it ends up being like great. You know what I mean? So
you develop that language too, like
yeah,
work with people.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to say much. You know what I mean? And we just got a great working relationship, and we're in and out of the studio, a few times a month, and I'm always sending beats. It's great.
All right. Well, now that we have that context, do you mind playing
Yeah.
a sample?
This is title track off the album.
Yo, bring back. Once upon a time in America. Once upon a time in America. The American me. Blood of a slave inheriting me. Sex, money, and drugs, American me. Nothing older than news from yesterday. Death and decay. Message conveyed in your face like pepper spray. And the maze like Frankie Beverly. Made a getaway, a better way. Rocketed from the Everglades. State drug up in the city. Robbing the Duke, they were parents to be. Blood of a slave inheriting me. Sex, money, and drugs, American me. American me.
That's hard.
American me.
Yeah, that's hard. Like I see a movie and all that. Yeah, it's hard. I feel like I should put more respect on out there.
Yes, sir.
So you know how it is out here. Sometimes the scene is so toxic that I feel like you don't even know about artists you should know about.
Yeah, man, it's tough. I mean, I hear you.
This is amazing.
Thank you.
And
No, it's
definitely we can get him on the show.
yeah. I mean, we can organize something. I'm sure he'd be glad to stop through. But yeah, I mean, that's what it is, man. It's the scene is very fractured now. Everybody's got their own bubble. So like, this constantly I'm coming across artists that I never heard before. It's like amazing stuff. You know what I mean? Like people like to complain like, oh, music isn't what it is. Like I kind of feel like the last few years, it's been a crazy renaissance of hip hop music, man.
Yeah.
So many good dope artists putting out a lot of stuff, and like you might, nobody knows about them. You know what I mean? Like people do. You know what I mean? But like not everybody, because that's just not how it works anymore.
Now, can you give the context to American Me? Like, so that song we just heard.
Yeah, so again, this album is more of like a autobiographical kind of like, I don't want to put words in Al J's mouth, but this is Al J's solo project. He kind of likes to, give his kind of perspective on things and where he comes from and how he grew up. So American Me is kind of like the title track. It was from his parents. He really takes a lot of pride in his parents and where he comes from. It was tough to grow up, you know what I mean, where he came from. And again, I'm not going to tell his story, but, obviously he had some hardships. This is more of like a tribute to his life, you know what I mean, and where he's at. He just turned, I want to say he just turned 50. I don't think he turned 51. I think it's 50. But, yeah, man. And, you know how it is, black men, it's not living too long, so it's it's a privilege to be knowing him and seeing him live his life. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So I know the two of you were talking about like different artists that you both apparently know. I don't know any of this stuff. Like I don't want to say I'm like disconnected from it,
No.
but like I'm only exposed to it as much as like let's say I'm doing like a music video or something like that. But other than that, I'm not really that involved. Like I know there's a big scene. Like I know there's a big scene here. Well, there's one in Lawrence. There's one in Boston.
Yep.
So
to his point, it's not scenes are created by sustainability.
Yeah.
So my point is that when you look at a Leeds and you look at the bridge, these are art establishments that have existed over the last 20 years. Surefire, Wonka Sound.
Right.
There. If you know, you know.
Names
And
you trust.
now that here's my little, because the activism side, because they're starting to look at your insurance covering studio time.
Mm-hmm.
So they're working out logistically in the state
nice.
of Massachusetts
That's cool.
how art, right, could be prescribed. But because we're system people, right, it's going to take them years to figure out these are the barbershops. You just need to pay the bridge, pay Leeds, pay Surefire, make sure those things are sustainable, and then all the artists, because you don't want to monetize people coming into the music just for money.
Mm-hmm.
To get
there isn't any. Yeah.
well, but that's the beauty of the artist where you get a LJ CD.
Yeah.
It's someone that has stayed the course.
Yeah.
That is able to put out an album that's timeless.
A full, like a full kind of package. You know what I mean? It's just, it's more like developing artists. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Where you get his story. Everyone, I think, at least I won't speak for you, but you were talking about your first records that you cut. The first records I cut was me mimicking stuff I heard.
Yeah.
I think it's just a common practice
Absolutely.
As an artist. And then you evolve to find out who you are as an artist, but that takes time. Your beats, before we moved on, that beat is crazy.
Thank you.
So when you make a beat and it's like your child, I produce here and there, right? But what is that like? Because you did this whole project.
Yeah.
So switching tones, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you want to sequence, that kind of speaks to the sequence of the album and stuff like that. You kind of want, there to be variety of like vibes and, different, types of songs and stuff like that. But it's a lot to consider. To tell you the truth, man, I just make some beats and like, I'll pass it to him and he, if he likes them, it's not like we have a ton of stuff, but it's like when we're going to put the album together, it's like, well, that track may not go with the rest of these, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, this, you know what I mean? But as far as like specific beats, it all depends on like kind of the vibe of sample that I'm kind of working with, you know what I mean? And if I hear something that sounds like, or if he's citing something from the 80s, I'm like, well, I know what sounds I kind of want to be working with, you know what I mean? Versus if he's, if I find something that's more like, some older something or other with strings that I might want to chop off. When that last one was like, I think some strings track with some singing in the background. It just depends. It depends on where you want to take the track.
Do you do courses? Like if we were to, like, this is a culture space, so I'm trying to teach young people how to sample, how to get familiar. So my point is, that's something that someone like you is interested, or you just kind of do your own?
I'm not going to say I'm against it. I don't know what kind of time I have to dedicate to that, but I used to be a teacher, so.
Oh, okay.
I'm not against teaching the kids on how to do stuff. You know what I mean? But a lot of it is like you learn how the machine works, and then you got to take that and you got to adapt that to what your kind of workflow is, or what your even your personality and what you. You know what I mean? So it's like you learn the tool, but as far as like what you do with it, that's completely like up to the artist. And I think that's one of the great things. You give the same artist, a couple of different artists the same sample, and they might come up with a lot of different, a lot of different ideas off of that.
I gotta plug John Glass. I don't know if you know about John Glass and Brady.
Sounds familiar, but no.
So they're Nowhere Studios in Methuen. On Tuesday
Oh, word?
nights, they have a community night where everyone just goes, if you're an artist, and they just try to make music.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I always plug that because it's a super cool space.
Hell yeah. Like those, like, like beat battles and stuff like that, which I've never participated in, but like that type of stuff is, it's like everybody gets together. It's like a community building kind of thing,
Yeah.
That's the beauty of, the music in general. And in hip hop is very kind of conducive to that. I feel, like making a cipher, that's just part of hip hop culture. So I think it's.
So you're touching upon something that I was sort of curious about, and this is sort of a tough question, and I want you both to get involved in this one. So, obviously, like you're saying, hip hop is like an open culture, right? But I think for a lot of other people who are not familiar with what
I said, I don't know if I'd say open. I'd say
okay. Well,
I say once you're in, you're in.
Well, yeah, you gotta respect the rules.
okay. Well, we'll get.
Go ahead.
So, from a lot of people from the outside, like I'll include myself in this, kind of being on the outside. Like I'm not immersed in the culture, right? So, and you also kind of alluded to this as well, right? The themes within the music are tailored towards a black community, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So you can almost make an argument that at least early hip hop itself maybe something that's for the black community, of the black community.
Well, there's a lot of brown, there was a lot of brown and it's a small percentage of white people, but yeah, it's
yes, if you want to be accurate, yes.
primarily of a colored, person's.
Yes. So this is the tough question for both of you, and you can get this. You guys can fight over who wants to go first. So let's say somebody who is perceived as being outside of the culture is now doing something within the culture. Would you consider that to be cultural appropriation or cultural appreciation, and why?
Yeah, it's. If you want to go for it, say.
No, go ahead.
It depends on what that person is doing, and how they're approaching their art, I think we were talking about this like a couple of weeks ago when you approached me the idea, but like I take it seriously that I know that I'm white in a black space, and I don't respect a lot of white dudes in hip hop because they don't understand that fact. That's my perspective. That's my opinion. I kind of like, yeah, you need to know, like I said, you need to know the rules. You need to like understand what the culture comes from. It comes from, impoverished people. It comes from their experience,
Mm-hmm.
And you can't just step in and be like, I'm going to do this primarily black art form and not have any understanding of where I fit into that. It's just, it rubs me the wrong way when I see people like commenting on things that, they have no foundation to like make a comment about stuff. I censor myself all the time. Again, I'm not saying I know what I'm doing or I try to be anti-racist all the time, but I probably have some blind spots. I definitely do. But I'm wary of people speaking out or even criticizing culture that they think they're a part of. They're an outsider. I don't mess with that at all. And a lot in especially the past few years, obviously because of what's going on, it makes me like wary of dudes in the culture, like white dudes. I kind of want, when I meet people, I kind of want to like be like, I got to do my research on you first before I can mess with you because I don't know where you're coming from and I don't want to co-sign that. Mm-hmm. Ignorance. Because we don't need it.
It's hard, man. I wish you were here for our last show. Well, so I have a friend, Nick, and Nick is a friend. He's a Republican, and he's
also from our area.
He's from your area,
mm-hmm.
But this is the other point, right? Like when I was a kid, when we were growing up, he's my brother. He's been there for me in those fabrics of life, mm-hmm. where the other kids come to your neighborhood and try to rough you up, mm-hmm. and you stand with who you stand with. So my point is, it's just, I feel everything you're saying, and what I want to say is like, it must be difficult because I think like you, right? You do the knowledge, right? You actually look into, okay, what is all this race stuff? I'm saying anybody, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then you start getting the information, and it's kind of like, okay, stop. Like the case is one.
Yeah.
I get it, right? And it's horrible how we've treated each other as human beings. But what I try to do now is like, and the whole point of this, two sides of the same coin, is like, how do people with similar values create a new community?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because instead of spending all our time trying to destroy, if that's the way you choose to live your life, you can live on that frequency. But I definitely want to build spaces where we're having the real conversations, because the real conversations is who stays doing hip hop, right? Who builds a relationship? Like, you didn't go and be like, hey, LG, let's do an album. You were invited into a process, and it was step by step, and you've been doing it for years, and that's what builds a different, like, that's why I say once you're in, like, if you get in, like what he's saying, they were on Chuck D's label.
Mm-hmm.
If you go anywhere and you're on Chuck D's label in any hip hop space, you're pretty much good. Like, who's gonna do anything against Chuck D? That's not the same for every.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, a check box on the authenticity column for them. It blows my mind all the time. You know what I mean? They have like weekly, I don't know if if they used to have weekly meetings with Chuck and, be on the phone and stuff like that. It's when they are strategizing about albums and stuff, it's very deep, oh yeah, talking to Chuck last night.
Influence. No, what I'm just saying is influence is like, whoever's got the young people's attention is always going to have the dollar and the popularity.
Yeah.
Because that's what the game is, right? All the young people are showing up, but that doesn't mean those young people can walk in and have influence on the culture without it making money.
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to say. That, like, Chuck D and certain names are names where if you're under them, now you got to make a hit.
Yeah.
You still got to do the work, but...
Yeah, and it's, like I say, it carries weight, it carries respect. It's not, they know that's, like, you can tell he's a real artist. He's not this fly-by-night, label or, this personality that's just trying to, like, make a buck, you know what I mean, and be, trendy, you know what I mean? It's like he's been who he is, doing his thing for 60 years.
Well, the culture with the DJs.
Yeah.
That's what people don't understand. If you're going to get right now it's a war because everyone goes to the internet, but I don't believe that. I believe at the end of the day, it's going to settle back because people like to go out. The whole point of hip hop is people like to go out, and you go out, and who's playing when you go out? A DJ.
Yeah.
So you have to contact DJs, and you have to convince them to slide your record into places, and then maybe if you're playing in the community, in the clubs, and you're playing on the radio, that's how you would go viral before the internet.
Before all that.
Now, my whole point is, like, if you call a DJ and this is Chuck D's label, they're gonna listen versus if you're forgetting
a certain amount of cash. Right. Yeah.
So that's all I'm just saying, like, and I gotta say that because these new kids I come onto, they think I'm a dinosaur now. And no, they do. I'm old now, so I'm trying to.
Definitely. I think we're all dinosaurs to them.
Well, I'm trying to give them advice. They're like, "Oh, that dude's old." Like, I'm like, "Do you understand? In Boston, they got KRS-One coming to. You should go out there."
Yeah.
Why I'm gonna go out there? I'm going to see Jiggy and the Five Murderers. Like, bro, you need me. I'm ranting.
Yeah, but to kind of bring this back full circle, from my perspective, and as you guys were talking, and like I said, I was essentially learning for the first time a little bit more about yourself. I feel as though because of your years of involvement, the fact that you took the time to understand the rules, the fact that you were accepted by other people that you worked with, it is clearly cultural appreciation.
Yeah.
So you've essentially demanded the respect of people by granting the respect back to them.
Yeah, that's part of it. You know what I mean? I just I think I look at like the community I grew up in and the kids that I'm friends with, and you know what I mean, and what how we all grew up, and even even the kids that I grew up with that I made music with and stuff like that. And it's like we were kind of like we were never kind of afraid to confront like the messages in the music, you know what I mean, because it's like a lot of kids back then will listen and be like, either ashamed by it, like, oh, I'm not as I'm not as authentic as a fan because I live in this area, versus I wish I was from the city. You know what I mean? Or they kind of couldn't get over their own kind of guilt about, like, I'm a white person. You know what I mean? Or, I listen to this black music. You know what I mean? And it's like, or they would be like turned off by like Ice Cube, like talking about like crackers and stuff like that. And it's like, I kind of always like understood like there's a difference. You know what I mean? There's a difference of what, you know what I mean, who you're talking about. Again, I was never kind of off put by that. And I think, some kids who, grew up and had to, got the wrong message from things, you know what I mean? They just didn't listen. You know what I mean? They just weren't listening. It kind of makes me like, I'm baffled. It's like, listen to the same, like, I grew up, we listen to the same songs. What do you mean? Like, you think this? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Plus, now that you're older, you're making beats and you're working directly with a lot of these artists, like, if you will, there's no guessing about it. Like, you literally can go to the artist and be like, hey, man, what is this song about? And you literally ask them, or they may even tell you because you're remaking the beats and you're trying to think about what their story is to then apply the right beats to that.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. And, working with Al J, like, he'll send me his lyrics beforehand. You know what I mean? And I'll send him a beat, but, like, he'll send me his lyrics. And so that way I can kind of, like, I know his cadence, you know what I mean, for the most part. And I can kind of, like, read and, like, listen to the beat and, like, figure out, okay, I want to do this here, do this there. So, yeah, I mean, it's beneficial in that way, you know what I mean? Collaboratively, it works out great.
Do you think there is anything that... Actually, let me take a step back. You've had experience in the city. You both have, right? You've had experience in the city. And you've seen how hip-hop can be used to help develop a community, or in itself is a community, right?
Definitely is a community.
Thinking about, like, how our community, like how do I want to word it, where we live in town.
Yeah.
Do you think that a place like where we live could benefit from having a culture of sorts that bonds everyone together?
Well, yeah, but it's like, you can't, it would have to be like the definition of a culture is that it grows from the ground up. You can't really bring and try to impose like a thing on a community if they're not kind of ready for it. I think, where are we from? It's a little too milquetoast for, if we were trying to do something in a way that like, some of these, it depends on what you want to do, but like, I don't know that there's enough people in town that would be kind of, amenable to that kind of, that bent. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So are you thinking that, and not even just specific to our town, I'm just using our town as an example, but like communities like that, you feel as though the messages, like, because we're talking about hip hop, the messages within hip hop are maybe too, difficult maybe for some people to even comprehend or build.
No, it's not that. I think that it's just that some of these communities just need to be more integrated. You know what I mean? And it's like they can't. I don't see a lot of the older people in town like relating to anything new that's coming out. You know what I mean? Music or anything as far as like culture. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a disconnect at that basic cultural level where it's like we're not even talking about music. Like they're not even talking about like basic like kind of popular culture. They're not. There's a certain point where people get disconnected. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and people, I think like with the younger people, there's young people that are being intentionally activists towards old culture. So they're like directly being over the top and swearing and being offensive, like.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And it causes like this, those kids have no respect.
Right.
But it's just like the reality is when we were all young, none of us had respect. When I was young, we threw, exit cars.
Yep.
You just, as a kid, if you're really honest, you're kind of a savage.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean...
Yeah, I was just,
like, name a kid that isn't...
Right, well, we're still trying to figure ourselves out and understand where we fit in society. And society is, of course, where we become civil, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So I'm just naming that because it's like I think like that's where this podcast and hip hop, like hip hop is about as American as apple pie.
Dude, it's the purest
my-
American art, yeah. It's the purest form of like American kind of art and culture.
So we would never see baseball go under, I don't think. I feel like baseball has been deemed an American sport, and there's all types of deals to get stadiums and stuff. Like hip hop deserves that,
Yeah.
and especially in Massachusetts, because of like we're talking about how long have you all been making music locally? And I'm saying worldwide, but I'm saying you built it here.
Yeah, 25 years.
So that's workforce development. No, that has sustained because you guys all worked in other places, and you would contribute, and I would contribute. I'll speak for me. I contribute mine being able to kind of maintain a society from my ability to make art, because I can make art and I can kind of be an artist.
Yeah.
I work, I live my life, and I don't need to, So like that's my point, that they need to invest more.
Yeah, definitely. The state of like patronage and like how artists get paid today is crazy.
It's crazy.
It's not sustainable at all. And yeah, it hurts. And there was a time where like this kind of like community kind of centers would filter out and support artists communities and pockets of creativity here and there. But it's tough nowadays. You know what I mean?
Well, it's Friday night, right? And we could go to the bar and like listen to whatever Pop 100, but you could have like this artist with a live band.
Yeah.
Like you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's creating an ambiance where like I don't know about your Friday night, but that's why I'm trying to see it go.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you got to fight against, I remember having to, when I tried, it was like 2005, we were putting out an album, it was a mixtape, you know what I mean? And we did a show at the what is it, the billiards, the BBC used to be right over there, that bar. It was like, you know what I'm saying? I can't remember the name.
Lafayette Square?
No, it was right on Washington.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, anyways, they were like hip hop, huh? We had to like do a lot of kind of talking to these dudes to allow them to have a hip hop show in the building because they associated with fights and stuff like that. Again, you talk to Leeds, man, he'll tell you the history of like Boston trying to get shows. Like for a long time, it's the reason why like the Middle East is so popular. It's in Cambridge. It's not in Boston because Boston was a lot of racism and they didn't want hip hop shows in any places in Boston for a long time, and you couldn't have one. So I mean, like that's the type of stuff that like damages culture, over time. You know what I mean? So
In our lives.
Yeah, and I know this is related, but not exactly the same. But like I find it funny. Like my son, he plays the cello, and there's actually a pretty good group of like independent like musicians who are all working together in orchestra, right? But they're all talented individuals, and we have a really great music program in our school district, and we have no bands.
yeah. It always blew my mind. It's always like they do lip syncs, but it's like they never have any like actual.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. And I've talked to like the music director. I've talked to like the orchestra. One of the music teachers that's pretty prominent. I was like, why don't we put on shows for these kids? Like, why don't some of them get together? Like, all they really need is like maybe one drummer, and they could have plenty of bands.
Yeah.
And the kids themselves don't think of it. It's mind blowing. I remember growing up at Haverhill High.
Yeah.
There was tons of bands. There were hip hop artists, and many of them, of course, have dissolved at this point because
This is what happens.
life.
But yeah.
But still, it doesn't make sense to me. Like a community where they have more resources are not doing anything, whereas a community like Haverhill, where like some of the people I know, like for example, your brother-in-law Ace, my brother from a different mother, right? Mm-hmm. He started making beats. He didn't have all the resources in the world. He like saved up money from like cleaning cars to buy his like first like keyboard with his I think he used Appleton, back then.
Ableton, right?
Yeah, the Ableton, yeah. And yeah, that was a thing, and then there was other music artists who would record with him, and that was a scene. That was I remember that just because I was so close to Ace, like that was the thing. But kids today, nothing.
Well, that speaks to like the origins of hip hop, where they just cobble them together, 2 records and a mic. You know what I mean? But versus like kids that have like other communities have, like you said, full blown like band program. When I was in high school, there was a couple bands and they would play around. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just that we didn't have the example. You know what I mean? Like there was no example. Like there was no like. I mean, yeah, there was a couple. Like I said, there was a couple bands, but it wasn't like I look up to these like what I mean, people that I know, and like there was a huge scene. It wasn't that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's tough to have an imagination outside of that when it's like you don't see it in the first place. But yeah, I mean, I do wonder about like I wish there was like I wonder, you know what I mean? Like my daughter has a violin, you know what I mean? And it's like I wish. Do any of your friends do anything else? You know what I mean? Like I know a couple of our other friends play violin and stuff like that, but it's like who has an acoustic guitar? You know what I mean? Who has a ukulele? You know what I mean? I don't.
Yeah, actually, I talked. I was at a kid's birthday party, and the dad, I found he played piano. I'm like, "You play piano?" He's like, "Yeah," and I teach my son too. I'm like, "Okay, well, do you guys like do like a band thing?" No. I don't know how is it in here in Amarillo? Like, is there
bands are just hard? Bands are really hard to put together because it's time, right? And that's where the DAW has like just really advanced. Like you don't need a drummer; you could just go online to Splice and find someone that's way better than anyone you're gonna find off the street and program.
You sample and chop.
Here's where the band is worth it. Nothing connects with people.
Yeah.
Like a collaborative artist.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I won't even limit it to a band. I've seen people make wind noises.
Yeah.
And use sound in a captivating way that wouldn't even, that's the stuff.
Yeah, like that. I shouldn't say kid, but there's a guy in college at UMass Lowell. He did the whole thing with the drum beats, but it was just 2 pencils. I don't know if you saw that. That was like a viral clip, like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. I mean that's the thing, and with people, right now more than ever, I agree with what he's saying. There's a wave happening. It's we move in circles, and it's like there's so much pain that we have to come back to community, to dancing, to music, because it's through that process that we get through to where we need to go. And there's like clearly listen, like I just heard one track. I'm looking forward to listening to this. For an artist to exist for 20 years and to pour all of their experiences into music, that's a very powerful lesson. Mm-hmm. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like a doctorate. And hip hop gave us that, but it slips most people's minds.
Yeah, and that kind of speaks to like the the perception that hip hop isn't like a high form of art, you know what I mean? And it's like I'm not sitting there saying like, oh, I'm this genius artist, you know what I mean, this and that. But like the previous album that me and Al J made, we kind of went into it being like, we're gonna make this be our tribute to the culture. There's a whole other theme to it, but like what I mean, we're gonna make this be like our kind of magnum opus. You know what I mean? We want to make it was like right around 2020, so people are talking about like the 50 years of coming up and stuff like that. And so we were kind of like in that vibe, you know what I mean? And we just wanted to like, make our, like you said, like a doctorate kind of like statement, you know what I mean? And man, we threw like kitchen sink at that whole thing. We were like, worked really hard on it. And that's, again, that's, you wouldn't put that on a resume, but like, I feel like I should put that on a resume, you know what I mean? Because it's like, this is a thing that I fucking made. And we spent a lot of time researching and, doing stuff, you know what I mean? So it's like, people don't look at it that way. And, people don't understand that like, even, the amount of work that goes into whatever album that you listen to, it's a lot of thought and care and process. It's not just like throw on a beat. I mean, some of it is. We throw on a beat and we just rap to it. You know what I mean? There's, put some respect on it. You know what I mean? Like hip hop is an elite art form, and you can make it what you want. You know what I mean? So
You gotta be inquisitive. Like for me, like, you know, I see the thing. We heard the first song, like the American Me, right? And then even the America, right? KKK, me, right? So not to say that, but my whole point is like this whole, and he's in the cover. He's wearing the American
it's a
flag.
whole theme. You know,
So
absolutely.
there's a whole bunch of symbolism, right? That you can take in and digest, and it's like a filter. But my whole point is, this is what I'm saying. Most people, because to your point, I think, and I this is the negative of commercial success. It's been so commercialized now that it's like, oh, this is a bad French fry. Like, you know, when you go to McDonald's and you get a bag French
absolutely.
fry,
It's all like cookie cutter. Absolutely.
right? This ain't McDonald's. This is a 5-course chef that is giving you a meal, and you got to be able to know the difference. But the only way you know the difference is from your ear.
Handcrafted, artisanal hip hop.
Right. You got to have an ear for it.
Yeah.
And then you're only going to get that from having, in your case, like 25 years.
Yeah,
That's actually, I could say that's like almost like the whole stretch of hip hop when you think about it, right?
Well,
From, like almost from
my entire lifespan is pretty much hip hop. But no, I mean like there's hip hop's been around for a long time. We talk modern, it's maybe you know what I mean. The stuff I do is more like in the line of like boom bap and that kind of '90s, late '90s kind of era stuff. So I mean that kind of.
I'm glad you corrected me on that because I was thinking about the math in my head. I'm like, wait, that doesn't add up.
Yeah.
But it is a decent part of it, though. That's probably about half the error.
If you're a fan of, so I'm a fan of blues.
Yep.
The context of the blues and how the blues operated and gave birth to rock and roll and all that stuff, right? Hip hop is like justice. Because, right, you look at the blues happens, all these blues guys come and they're not recognized, right? Elvis is in love with the black music scene. He's trying to create a bridge, but they're basically like, we'll kill you, Elvis. Are you crazy? You know what I mean? Like this, so this is the context, and then it turns into all what it turns into. You have Michael Jackson, all that stuff, but then hip hop brought it right back to the community again. Until, you know, it went commercial again, you know. And all due respect to the people that helped that happen, the Jay-Z's and the LL Cool J's and the Eminems, they took hip-hop from cities and corners and put it to the Fleet Center again, and now it's out of reach again.
Yeah.
But it's not, because we can listen. We can.
No, it's always, it's always going to be a culture of like the underground and the ground level.
But it was all the underground of when we first were fans.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember you had to watch, Yo MTV Raps, and we're so spoiled. Like we're like, we had the Patriots, we had hip hop and the Patriots.
Yeah.
So it's like you didn't know when you was watching Yo MTV Raps or the Basement.
Yeah, I mean, you make a point. I would just say for me personally, like I got to see that stuff rarely, you know what I mean? So it was always like when it was on, I was like, oh my God, this is the best. But no, I mean, you make a good point, you know what I mean? We were kind of spoiled in that we grew up in that golden, that second golden era. And definitely, I'm so thankful that, we were there for it, you know what I mean? Because you'll never see that again, you know what I mean?
So can you do 5? Can I ask him for the 5?
I was going to say we're actually running out of time.
Okay.
So I actually just want to say that we're very thankful to have you come and speak with us and really giving us completely on brand with the whole podcast, giving us a whole other perspective of hip hop that I think maybe not a lot of other people have maybe experienced. And if they have experienced, now they have a new connection and say, hey, you know what? I'm a hip hop head from the suburbs too, right?
Yep. Yeah, so, be proud of it. Just be who you are. Like you don't have to pretend like I'm not authentic unless I'm from the city. It's like it's not really about that. It's where you're from. It's not where you're from. It's where you're at. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like you got to recognize that you are stepping into a space that didn't come from where you come from. You know what I mean?
No. And you just got to appreciate the culture, right?
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Is there at least one song you can write us out with?
Yeah, we'll do let's see if I can pull something up real quick. Same number, same hood.
All right.
Single off the
album. Same hood. Number 3.
This is I've been making videos lately, so this is one of the first ones I made for LJ. You'll see it, but it's just a rap. Call it a rap hands video. It's just kind of just doing clips of him spitting. But yeah, this is kind of like more of a old school vibe with me and LJ. Kind of like LJ.
Yo. Bring them down to the basement, absent of sunlight, no guns to fight, turntables with one mic, broken glass everywhere, conditions were slum-like, couldn't get to God, had to go through a sun Christ, God bless you, yes you, cause I'm tight, a lot